Hey everybody, Def Kenny T with you. It is January 2023, and that can mean only one thing, that we are less than 1 week away from the 40th anniversary of this landmark album right here, Def Leppard's Pyromania, produced by Robert John Mutt Lange and released on January 20th, 1983. Unbelievable. 40 years have gone by. Can you remember what you were doing on January 20th, 1983? Maybe going to your local record store and picking up your cassette copy of Pyromania, and then 6 months later when you wore it out, you picked up your second cassette copy. But wanted to take this opportunity to talk about some cool stuff related to Pyromania. So far, the band hasn't really announced any sort of anniversary, box set, residency, video. There's like nothing coming out of the Leppard camp. So I'm trying to send out a little positive energy to the universe and to Joe Elliott in his archives to maybe dig up some video, dig up some cool stuff related to the Pyromania anniversary. But in the meantime, I figure we'll talk about 3 different categories. We'll talk about 12-inch vinyl. We will talk about magazines and all the cool stuff that came out back in the day with vintage magazines. And we'll talk about little factoids, things that you may not know about Def Leppard's Pyromania. So 40th anniversary, let's get into it. All right, let's start this 40th anniversary of Def Leppard's Pyromania off with some factoids, 10 things that you may not know about Def Leppard's Pyromania, starting with the final track on the record, Billy's Got a Gun. Actually, not the final track on the record. If you listen closely, as Billy's Got a Gun fades out, all of a sudden another track sort of starts playing. It's like a robotic drum loop sample, electronic drum thing. The band actually called it March of the Wooden Zombies. Check it out. If you have one of the original vinyl pressings of Pyromania, you may have noticed that there is a phrase etched into each side of the vinyl. On side 1 it says, "If you're gonna be a bear," and then on side 2 it says, "Be a grizzly." All right, as we celebrate 40 years of Pyromania, let's talk about the 10 tracks on the studio record and the fact that almost every single song on the record has been performed live throughout the band's history, with the exception of one song. Do you know what song from Pyromania has never been performed live before? "Comin' Under Fire." Probably my favorite song on the record. It's unbelievable. But even Action Not Words got performed once. If you have a copy of the Animal Instinct book that came out in '87, there's a little blurb here about the first show of the Pyromania tour in Odessa, Texas. And allow me to squint and read. It says, "Foolin' was added to the set list, and Action Not Words was dropped after the very first show in Odessa because it went down like a pork pie at a Jewish wedding," according to Joe Elliott. So we do know that Action Not Words has been performed once and only once. And as far as I know, if you can prove me wrong, let me know. But I don't think Comin' Under Fire has ever been played live. Travesty, fantastic song. Hopefully we get a Pyromania residency in the near future to take care of that. All right, as you look at the back credits on Pyromania, you'll see a little thing here that says Other Keyboards, Booker T. Boffin. Do you know who Booker T. Boffin is? It's 80s synthesizer superstar, She Blinded Me with Science, Thomas Dolby. Did you know that there's a very early Def Leppard song called Medicine Man? It's never been recorded for any of their studio albums, but it did appear on a bootleg called Under Fire. This came out around 1991. The recording of Medicine Man itself was from the Reading Festival in 1980. It later came out on this Record Store Day vinyl, When the Walls Came Tumbling Down. You'll see Medicine Man is the first track on side 2. What is Medicine Man? Well, it's actually a very early version of what would become Rock Rock Till You Drop. Check it out. All right, if you go back to Pyromania and you look at the back cover, you'll see background vocals, the Leppardettes, courtesy of themselves. Who are the Leppardettes, you may ask? Well, it's just the band. Just them being silly, I guess. They do their own background vocals. We all know that they can sing, and sing very well. You ever listen really closely to the midsection, the guitar solo of Rock of Ages? You ever notice there's a lot of swirling vocals kind of going on in the background? Well, if you listen really closely, it kind of sounds like this.
Chicka-ta-ta-ta. Suck it. Fuck the Russians! Brezhnev's got herpes! Asshole!
Did you know that Rick Allen, the Thunder God, plays electronic program drums on Pyromania? It's true. Producer Mutt Lang was looking for a sound that he'd never heard before and certainly trying to take it up a couple notches from what they'd recorded in 1981 with High and Dry. So there's a lot of rigidly, very larger-than-life sounding electronic drums on Pyromania. You may not have known that. Did you know that there's a bootleg VHS video that came out around 1990 called The Interview Sessions? Features a lot of the interviews the band did during the Pyromania and Hysteria era. One of the interviews was after the Pyromania record was released. All five guys are in Australia doing an interview on a boat. And you'll see Steve drinking away, you'll see Rick Allen having a cigarette, and you'll see Phil Collen, who all of a sudden becomes aware that his zipper is down. It's hilarious. Check it out.
And so we ended up with a management deal, and we had a further... Hello? We had a further 16,000 made. This is an edit point.
Did you know that Joe Elliott rode a horse for the Foolin' video for like an entire day on a beach in New Jersey, and they never used 1 second of the footage? I need to see that. That's part of the box set that I'm talking about, Joe. I want to see 45 minutes of your horse riding footage in New Jersey for the Foolin' video that has never been seen before. That's the type of stuff the Leppard fans want to see. Okay? Make it happen, Joe. All right, 10 things that you may not have known. Factoids about Def Leppard's Pyromania, their third studio album released on January 20th, 1983. Unbelievable that we are at the 40th anniversary of this landmark record. You may have the LP, you may have the cassette, you may have the compact disc, you may have in the studio Redbeard interview, you may even have the gold version. You remember the gold disc? Yeah. Just trying to send some positive energy out to the universe and to Joe. Open up the archives. We're looking for more video. We're looking for demos, audio stuff that we've never heard before, remixes. The Dortmund, Germany video exists. There's a live in Montreal that's an audience shot. There's really not a lot of other video that surfaced from the Pyromania tour. And I know that Joe and his girlfriend at the time filmed the stadium show that they did at Jack Murphy Stadium, the final show of the Pyromania tour in the US. There's some footage of that surfaced on VH1's Ultimate Albums special on Pyromania. And there's also some pro footage that is like 10 seconds long that featured in that special. Super close, the flames, the band's going crazy, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen this before. So I'm wondering if there's any other professional footage out there from the Pyromania tour, interviews. Would love to see a big comprehensive box set. Make it happen, Joe. We love you. We love Def Leppard. We love Pyromania. Celebrate the 40th anniversary. Crank it up. Take care. All right, let's do a quick rip of my top 10 favorite vinyl, 12-inch vinyl releases from the Pyromania album. First up is the first single from Pyromania. This is the first 12-inch version of Photograph. Here's the back cover. Side 2 is a double side, Bring It on the Heartbreak, and Mirror Mirror. Number 9 is also a Photograph 12-inch single. This is the re-release. This came a little bit later in the album cycle, re-release of Photograph. And you can tell this single was released a little bit later in the album cycle because the photo is taken from the Foolin' music video. B-side on this 12-inch is Bring It on the Heartbreak. Number 8 on my countdown of top 10 vinyl from Pyromania, Too Late for Love, 12-inch single. Just one of my absolute favorite covers in the entire Leppard catalog. Too Late for Love was never released as a single in the US. There was no video at the time on MTV. The B-side of this 12-inch single is Foolin'. That's where the photo comes from again. And High and Dry, Saturday Night. Number 7 for me is the Live at the LA Forum 1983. Now this record did not come out in 1983. It was only released as part of the Def Leppard Pyromania Deluxe Edition and then later as part of that Collector's Edition vinyl box set. But this is from September 11th, 1983. There you see the track listing for Live at the Forum, September 11th, 1983. Brian May from Queen features on the final track, cover of Travelin' Band by CCR. Number 6 on my countdown is a bootleg called Two Arms, Two Arms, live at the BBC 1978 and 1983. The first 5 tracks on this release are from the very early days. You'll see where it says side 1, track 1 is Too Many Jitterbugs. The correct name of the song is Glad I'm Alive. The final 5 tracks come from the Pyromania era. I believe these are from that Dortmund, Germany show. And if you want to take a close look where they have Phil Collins mentioned here, oh, they've got Pete Willis's name next to Phil. That's a typo as well. Hi, Joe. Good to see you. All right, number 5 on my list is an interview called Interview featuring DJ Jim Ladd. This comes from the Pyromania era. Very hard to find.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, we meet 2 members of an English hard rock band that does not like the term heavy metal. The band is Def Leppard, and you are about to meet lead singer Joe Elliott and guitarist Steve Clark.
I'm Joe.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Jim Ladd. Welcome to an interview of Def Leppard.
The EP cost to record $300, and to actually have 1,000 pressed, it cost us $900. And then we had picture sleeves made up, which cost about $120. And we glued them all together ourselves, stuck them with glue. Yeah, cutting them up, folding the sides over and gluing them down like that.
That's great. You guys did that yourself?
We did 1,000 of them. It took us a long time. And that's basically what helped break the band. We had his own label. It was great, you know. You just get these people to press it up, and they say, well, what label do you want? So we just designed one and just made it called Bludgeon Refoler. Because somebody once called us that. They said we sounded like Sabbath. So just as a joke, we said, well, you know, let's use it. And it's like a picture sleeve and what have you. And rather than sending a tape to a record company or whatever, actually sending a picture sleeve EP. It's like they're not just going to say, oh, no, here's another tape in it, you know. They're going to go, wow, look at this. And so did the radio stations, and so did the papers, because nobody was doing anything like that.
Heavy Rock Brigade comes in at number 4. This is a vinyl bootleg. This is Phil Collins' very first show with Def Leppard at the Marquee in London. Here's the track listing from February 9th, 1983. Rock Brigade, Photograph, Another Hit and Run, Billy's Got a Gun, Rock of Ages, Travelin' Band, Let It Go, Get Your Rocks Off, and Wasted. My guess is that was not the complete show. I think they played more than 9 songs on that particular set. But again, this is Phil Collins' very first show with Def Leppard. And if you look closely, when I got a chance to meet Phil a few years ago, he was nice enough to sign it for me. Thanks, Phil. All right, number 3 in the countdown. We're getting to the top of the heap, the heavy hitters, the big boys. This is my original LP of Pyromania. You'll see Phil Collins signed it in the upper right-hand corner there when I met him with Delta Deep a couple of years ago. One of the biggest selling albums of all time, if not one of the top 20 records of the entire 1980s. Pyromania by Def Leppard, back cover. All right, number 2 is one that's unbelievably hard to find. This may be one of my favorite records in my entire Def Leppard collection, but it's a 12-inch exclusive interview with Phil Collins by Ibanez Guitars. The only way that you could get this record back in the day is if you actually bought an Ibanez Destroyer from your local Ibanez dealer. I unfortunately was never able to get a hold of one of those Destroyers, although I still want one. This interview was done by Peter Mensch, their former manager. All right, here's the back cover of the interview with Phil Collins, the Ibanez interview conducted by Peter Mensch, their former manager. The interview was done on December 8th, 1984 at Whistleord Studios in Holland. And everybody knows that's where they were recording the follow-up to Pyromania, what would become Hysteria. All right, here's my actual invoice from CVC Collectibles. I ordered this on August 17th, 2000 for the princely sum of $79.55.
Did you do much practicing? You know, what kind of schedule did you follow? Did you play some chords or scales or all those things that guitar players do periodically?
Yeah, and I still do them actually when I'm waiting between takes. So I mean, when I first started, I used to practice like 8 hours a day sometimes.
Did you practice other people's solos and things like that?
No, always my own solos, but I nick licks off of other people.
But you never like learn someone's solos off by heart?
Not really, no.
Do you recommend that as a technique for people? I mean, or do you think it's just sort of try and be as inventive as possible?
Just do what feels natural, really. I never felt that comfortable ripping off a solo identical.
Why did you decide that you have to use a tremolo vis-a-vis, for example, other guitar players don't even have one on their guitar?
Because Eddie used one, man.
All right, number one on the list is Rock of Ages, the 12-inch single, the second single and the second video from Pyromania. You may be asking yourself, Jeff Kenny T, this isn't especially rare. What is so significant about this record? Why is it number one on your list? Well, basically, this is the first vinyl record I ever bought by Def Leppard of any kind in my entire Def Leppard collection in my life. And a little place called Music Plus in San Antonio, Texas. I went inside, took a look. I was like, why am I going to buy this? Do I really want to spend $6 on this? If you take a look at the back side, the B side is Action Not Words, and I already had that. It's already on Pyromania. It's not like they had any previously unreleased B sides. So I was like, do I really want to spend $6? So I left. I came back a week later, didn't buy it, came back a week later. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy this thing, and I'm so glad I did. Basically, it's the first record I ever bought by Def Leppard in my collection. So number one, without question, is the Rock of Ages 12-inch single. There it is. You know, like any other kid in the 80s, I loved collecting magazines, all the interviews, the photos, the posters you could put on your wall. So, you know, I'm no different, and most of the stuff that a lot of Leppard fans kept through the years, all these interviews from Hit Parader and Circus Magazine. Some of the stuff should look pretty familiar. Cream Magazine. Cream's back, by the way. So one of the favorite things that I would love to do is collect all the ads. So here's Phil pumping the Kaler tremolo. Here's the Cream Magazine where they're promoting the Boy Howdy beverage. And as I was talking about earlier, here's the Phil Collin. If you want to buy the Ibanez DT555 Destroyer, that's when you can get the Ibanez 12-inch limited edition interview with Phil Collin. And of course, I didn't have however much money it cost to buy an Ibanez Destroyer back when I was 11 years old, 12 years old. So here's another Ibanez ad. Here's a Def Leppard Pyromania ad, and one of the famous ads, Rick Allen's drums have to take a lot of heat. Here is the poster size version of that Ludwig drums ad. Rick Allen's drums have to take a lot of heat. I think it was like $1. If you sent $1 to Ludwig drums back in the day, they would send you this poster. So I've had it all these years, and I had it framed, and met Rick Allen just a couple months ago in Boulder, and he was nice enough to autograph this for me and do a little stick Rick. So thank you very much, Rick. Appreciate it. Here's my top 10 favorite magazines, Def Leppard from the Pyromania era. This is more of an honorable mention, the Rock Candy, because it came out in 2017, but they did put Joe on the cover from the Pyromania era. Couple photo magazines tied at number 10 on my list, Max Mag and the Rock Stars Photo Magazine. Tied at number 9 would be the Hit Parader Heavy Metal Heroes, Def Leppard versus Judas Priest, and Def Leppard versus Dio. Pretty funny when you consider Vivian Campbell ended up joining the band several years later. Number 8, Tiger Beat Rock Magazine. We got Def Leppard and Duran Duran. Rock Fever at number 7. Joe on the cover, and then Circus Magazine, number 6 on my countdown top 10. All right, we're in the top 5 magazines for Def Leppard Pyromania. Record review at number 5. This is a pretty rare issue. Hit Parader, A Year to Remember, coming in at number 4. Number 3, the Heavy Metal Bible for the UK Kerrang! Magazine. The best interviews, the best photos. A couple different issues here from Pyromania. Number 2 is the Guitar for the Practicing Musician, just a classic issue with Phil and Steve on the cover, the Terror Twins. But number 1 goes to the banner headline, the biggest thing I've ever seen. 13 years old, this thing comes out, you're kind of blown away at the newsstand. Def Leppard Rocks America, Circus Magazine, souvenir issue. That's it. That's my number 1.